A major highlight of President Bola Ahmed Tinubu's inaugural speech on Monday, May the 29th, was his bold statement that oil subsidy is gone. Now, the immediate message that statement sent to Nigerians and indeed the whole world was that a new sheriff is in town. Welcome to Standpoint. I am Precious Amayo. Now, even though it is an economic issue, as we've always heard from major industry players rather than politicians, oil subsidy has been turned to a major political tool in the hands of politicians who have used it for patronage, whereby a clique of highly connected individuals fleece the country and hurt the economy badly. President Tinubu's decision and courage to remove the subsidy on fuel imported and consumed in Nigeria is arguably a bold one, given that the subsidy issue has been, over the years, a bull in a China shop. The removal of the subsidy, we hope, will mark the end of an era in this country when billions of naira found its way into the pockets of just a few Nigerians in privileged positions. And that's, what we continue to hear over and over again from industry players. Now, to many Nigerians, the removal of oil subsidy is an invitation to suffering for the citizens who will have to pay more for a litre of fuel. They will also have to pay more for transportation and also for foodstuff, which prices are expected to rise as a result of hike in transport fare. Already, we have seen pockets of issues arising from President Tinubu's pronouncement on Monday, just a few hours after the president's speech. Queues resurfaced at filling stations, even as many filling stations closed shops, feigning scarcity of the products. Now, expectedly, the citizens are already outraged, as many of them had to trek long distances or spend so much to get to their different destinations. Tuesday morning, less than 24 hours after the president's pronouncement. Now, joining me to talk about this is the presidential candidate of Social Democratic Party at the last election, Adewole Adebayo. We also have a development policy analyst, Alexander Oji. He joins us via Zoom. Let me state that Adewole Adebayo joins us from Abuja studio. And we're also expecting to be joined by the General Secretary of the Trade Union Congress, Nuhu Toro. And we hope that he's able to join us just before the end of this program. Good to have you join us, gentlemen.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
All right, let me begin with you. Because in this conversation, you are the only non-politician, and that's, I know it's just both of you, but Mr. Adewole Adebayo is a politician. So I'm going to start with you, Mr. Oji. As a policy analyst, we've had several sides of this particular conversation. But for someone who is into policy development, what's your thought on fuel subsidy removal and where we are today in the country?
Well, thank you. Thank you for having me. I think the very first thing I want to start with is it's a pity that Nigerians heard the president at the inaugural speech, but failed to listen to the president's speech. What he was actually placing before Nigerians was an obvious truth. And in his words, he says, the budget before him has not made any provision for the so-called subsidy, which many have described in several terms. The immediate past Minister of Petroleum, Resources for State, Chief TB Principal, they noted that this is actually a syndicated criminal, enterprise perpetrated by a few Nigerians on the entire nation. However, we must, as a people, begin to take time to pay attention to the words of the president. In understanding his standpoints, it is something that every one of the presidential aspirants and every well-meaning yearning Nigerian knows, that this enterprise can no longer continue to stand the test of time. Because indeed, it's something that nobody has been able to put an actual figure or be able to define accurately what indeed this whole enterprise and the whole game has been. And we have continuously seen that there is always certain elements within the states that each time there is a pronouncement to take this off, you suddenly see the reawakening from all angles. like as if it's in the interest of the common man to always ensure that this continues. And we ask, to whose advantage?
Mr. Orji, is it not in
Yes.
the interest of the common man? Because I listened to, we've had statements from the labor unions. They have said, look, this is the only thing that Nigerian workers especially, and indeed Nigerians benefit from government. When you look at the trajectory of governance in the country, that perhaps this is the only one thing, this is the one thing that Nigerians enjoy, and why should it be taken off? So when you say that, look, it is not the benefit of the common man, some people will disagree with you.
Okay, let's even start with the composition of the so-called labor, and agitators. Indeed, I have never been against any form of association of the labor or the TUC or the Pengasins, for the agitation and clamor for better governance and all of that. But let us look at the root of the whole crisis today. In the petroleum sector is a composition of the labor members. And these individuals have been neck deep into this whole process and the systems for years gone by now. If indeed, actually there's a sincerity to end this, which we know that the major causes of this, or that gave right and gave birth to these, is the collapse of the refineries. Assuming we have the refineries working, perhaps there would have been better means to explain the alternative of the world subsidizing the petroleum for the common man. We have not had, I am not aware, but I beg of you, the anchor, you may have in records, where indeed the NLC, the Pengasin, and co have decided that we should shut down the corporation called Nigeria because that the refineries failed to work. But indeed, what we are now seeing is that there's always this target driven for the so-called subsidy thing to continue. And we ask, to what gain is it? We have not heard any particular individual come out and say, I am a benefactor of this so-called subsidy regime. But each government that has come and gone has continuously plundered these resources without names of individuals or companies being placed or brought to book. How then does Labour now project and put this before us as common men on the street, that this is to your own benefit, when we know the primary source of the whole issues? If indeed Labour has actually, or clamoring, or indeed in the interest of the masses, let Labour show us what effort it has made to say, Mr. President, in the past, if these refineries fail to work, we will down tools because we believe that this subsidy thing should end. And there would have been justification to say, okay, let the refineries be put up. We didn't see that with the immediate past presidency government. We didn't see that with the government before. But what we have always seen is that each time there is, like every child you pull off a sucking breast from the mother's lip, you will see the reaction. It would start wailing. And that's what we have been seeing. It is wailing without a justification.
Mr. Orji, I'm really hoping that the General Secretary of Trade Union Congress can join us, No Hutoro.
Yes, I want them to answer
it would be great to have him address some of these issues. But I know that one of the things that Labour has said in this particular conversation is that the refineries must work before subsidies are removed. But I want to bring in Mr. Adebayo into the conversation. I know, Mr. Adebayo, you have spoken to how this announcement was made. You've listened to Mr. Orji. He said, look, Nigerians did not hear what the president said, that all they heard was, look, subsidy is gone. But I know that you have always spoken to how the announcement was made and the impact that we saw later. And you said, look, it is dependent. That impact was determined by how the announcement was made. And I just want you to speak to that again.
Okay, that's a minor aspect of my overall commentary on the issue. I just spoke on presidential stylistics of messaging. That is not a policy problem. I just said, as at the time President Tinubu was taking the oath of office, in our law books, the subsidy was already gone. Because the Petroleum Industry Act 2021 has said petrol should be priced at market rates, and government money should not be in it to subsidize it for the consumer. And the 2023 Appropriation Act had bifurcated the budget for the year into half. One half has subsidy in it, apparently maybe because the previous government wanted it to end with their own regime. And from 30th of this month, end of this month, the subsidy would naturally go away. And all the savings have already been spoken for inside the 2023 budget. So I thought that if I was the one sitting there, standing there, taking the oath of office, making my speech, such a policy that could cause panic probably would not be delivered in my inaugural address or delivered in that particular way. Maybe I would just, if I want to mention it at all, because the president knows why he is speaking. I'm not the president. He has a number of audiences that he has to address. So he might be addressing the international community, the business community, the Bretton Woods institution, and other partners whom, in his own view, inside his renewed hope, those are the people he wants to partner with to run his own Tinubunomics. So he may want to signal to them some commitment. But I thought that he shouldn't have forgotten the panicking nature of the subject, and in such a way that he will have also mentioned the fact that he would execute it in a manner in which it will not cause too much shocks, and maybe mention some of the palliatives and other things, then people can actually calm down. But that's his own choice. I was just mentioning that as I was spontaneously reacting, because I was predicting that there will be bedlam the next day. I knew that already. So, but going to the principle of the subsidy removal and all of that on its own, there are two broad schools of thought. I belong to one school of thought that said that you cannot remove subsidy. And I argued extensively throughout the campaign. President Tinubu belongs to the other school of thought that says subsidy has to go. And in that same school of thought, that's where Atiku Abubakar of PDP belongs. That is where Mr. Peter Obi of Labour Party belongs. And at the end of the election season, those who believe in that idea that subsidy must be removed, not only removed, must be removed unconditionally and immediately, they won majority of the votes. If you look at their votes put together, it's about 90% or so of the entire vote cast. So as a Democrat, I understand the fact that they have a democratic mandate. Whatever is the beauty of my economics or the merit of my argumentation, that argument has failed with the people. The people have said, let Tinubu or Atiku or Obi, whichever of them became president, should go and remove subsidy. And Tinubu became president. And how do you, as a Democrat, criticize, obstruct, irritate a person who was duly elected by the people, implementing the program he promised the people? That is not how to be a Democrat, and I'm a Democrat. So I will let him implement it.
If I may come in here, you know, I always find it very, very fascinating how quickly we are quick to name the economy over, you know, in line with the president who is in power. We've now moved from Buhari-nomics to Tinubu-nomics. And it's, you know, you just mentioned that, and, you know, it was fascinating for me. But I wanted to, you know, ask you why, because you've always said that, look, and really you did not support the removal of fuel subsidy even while you were campaigning. And I just wanted to ask you why you think that that's bad for us as a country, and why you think that we should not remove fuel subsidy. Okay, well, at least you are the one asking me, so people will not accuse me of continuing to campaign after the election. But a summary of what I said before, and which I still stand on, but I respect the president's right to implement his policy for the next 4 years, is that, one, if you look at the incidence, the burden of the subsidy, and if you take reaction and interaction within the government, you will see that major burden that the fiscal burden that we bear on the subsidy is not traceable to consumption. It is traceable to fraud and waste. And all of them put together, including labor, they pretend that they don't know how much we are consuming. But if you say we don't know how much we are consuming, then Pegasan, Nupeng, TUC, they have no mouth
to speak because they are the one manning the industry, right from Atlas Cove, where you are importing from, to the terminals where you store them, to the pipeline, to the trucks that freight them across the country, to the pump fronts where you sell it to the buyer, and so you cannot say that you cannot trace. You can trace, but they said they couldn't. If we had formed government, we would have shown to you how we could trace that. And when you establish that, you might discover that the burden will reduce. In fact, in our own calculation, we believe that 2/3 of the burden of subsidy could have gone away if you remove over-invoicing, wrong payments, and all of that. Then, that's on the issue of governance. With respect to the issue of subsidy and in relationship to cost push inflation, I am saying that basically, in economics, husbandry of costs is a very major issue because factor cost affects factor price, and factor price affects purchasing power, and purchasing power affects inflation. Let me give you an example within the industry. If the government had not subsidized Dangote, he would not have been able to build his refinery, right from the land, tax credits, some injection of public money. So if you can subsidize a private enterprise building a refinery, then you know that subsidy is not always negative. Now, if you discover that petrol is the cost driver that we have, that everything, for example, freighting our goods, powering our, locomoting our people, and so many other usage of motor in this country is based on use of petrol, you might decide to say, wait a minute, why will I take this one and not subsidize it? Because if I don't subsidize petrol, I have to subsidize cost of living. So I have to now take minimum wage from 30,000 to 70,000. So I have to borrow money again, because if you look at this year's budget, the personnel cost is based on minimum wage of 30,000 and then a graduation to the highest point. Now, if you go and sit down with labor and come out again, labor and government will now conspire together to inflate the economy by saying you want to increase minimum wage. Now, it does automatically increase the number of goods available for labor or any other person to purchase. So now you create inequity because not everybody works for government. So I don't work for government. When you increase minimum wage, it doesn't increase my income. You are being unfair to me. So, and the mistake we are making that the labor unions, TVC and LSC, are representing Nigerians is wrong. They are representing their members, and their members are a tiny minority. So there's nothing they are doing with the minimum wage that is going to help a vulcanizer in Ibadan or a suya seller in Kano who is not on salary. So what I'm bringing together is that you have won the argument, but you cannot change the economics. So, and there are other factors, if you have enough time, that I will deal with, that will show to you that it is not the only option available, but it is one option they have taken.
Mr. Adebayo, you make very, many would say very logical argument, but there's also the economics of it. But let me also bring in Mr. Orji to respond to that. Perhaps he supports the removal of fuel subsidy. Mr. Orji, react to all that Mr. Adebayo has said. It seems very logical when you listen to it, especially the part where—
in the very first instance.
Mr. Orji, just hold on, especially the part where he talked about creating inequity with the minimum wage. Not everybody can afford to pay that, especially in the private sector. Speak to the issues of the burden. He talked about over-invoicing as well. So just speak to all of the issues he raised.
All right. First of all, I just want to clear something he said regarding the president's speech. I do not think it was ill-timed. The president did absolutely what, if I was in his position, I would do. It is simple sincerity and putting things as it is to Nigerians. What we Nigerians have failed to realize, what got us to here, is most times pretending all is well. It is best a doctor tells you your situation, how much you've got, than giving you a false impression when you know that all is not well. But however, it is managing the situation because the president cannot be there all the places at the same time. It is now left for the managers of these different enterprises to first of all acknowledge that there are rules and regulations in every country, just as Nigeria does. In this case, it has not warranted for the crazy panic situations we have out there. Because let us not forget, according to the current CEO of NNPC Limited, who actually enumerated some of the figures but couldn't give exact figures of how much fuel we consume in a day. But yes, according to him, they have the figures that leave the depots. What I was able to get is how indeed this subsidy is being treated. Is it as the goods come in or as they leave the depots that these payments are made? Well, let's even assume that these products in various fuel stations today, the subsidies have been paid for. Do these individuals have the right or criminally carry out such increases, within the hours of the president, admitting to Nigerians in simplicity the current situation of the budget which he is meeting? He has not actually put out anything else apart from letting Nigerians know the situation. I'm happy Mr. Adebayo agrees with me on the roles of the labor. Because over the years, we've always thought that labor's major interest is about the generality of Nigerians. We'll talk about the minimum wage. I'm not aware if all the states in the Federation today are paying the current minimum wage. Yes, we're clamoring for more. Is it actually the increase in the minimum wage that will address the current situation of Nigeria? And the answer is no. The immediate past government has sent over 1,300-page document on how these suggestive means can be. But the problem we have in Nigeria most times is that we never open ourselves to taking suggestions, even when it is volunteer. Volunteerism is the priceless level of work we can get to get a nation working. We need more volunteerism, even under the present dispensation. What Nigerians need to understand is that I'm happy we're now putting an end to this criminal enterprise called subsidy, which indeed Mr. Adebayo failed to expatiate more, especially when it relates to petroleum, which is what is in question today. Let us not forget that other products still exist. But indeed, how indeed has it now transferred to a betterment of the average Nigerian? I also want to agree with him on the fact that the increase in minimum wage or the so-called adjustments will not affect the living standard of the average man, close to my home, or the average man selling tomato in the markets. But indeed, it's about how we as individuals now learn to follow the rules of the laws and engagements. The very first instance is the pronouncements that in clear terms, this whole enterprise is over. What we would have expected Labour to do is to say, okay, in alternative, now we will be having these XYZ savings. We shall go to the engine rooms, which we are aware from the very onset that in every change of this whole called processes, Labour personnel members are all involved. What then do we now need to get Nigerian working? Is a collaborative effort of every individual. And it begins with you and me. The very first thing is accountability. And accountability begins with what do we need to get these refineries working? I'd like to also clearly state that I don't think it's the fact that Nigeria subsidized Dangote refinery that he came on board. Dangote is a private enterprise who is allowed to bring in partners, to push his business forward. And in this case, according to the GCO of NNPC Limited, he graciously gave Nigeria about 20% of this company, to which Nigeria now plays a role in the ownership of this private enterprise. But let us not forget that before now, a lot of modular refineries were all licensed. Where are these modular refineries? Why do we not have them today in operation? Because this would have eased this profitable venture. It is indeed profitable
Mr.
because those who are actually going into
these
the
are some of the,
yes,
sorry to jump in, but perhaps these are some of the issues that we would look at after this break. You've raised, yourself and Mr. Adebayo have raised really critical points. We'll expatiate on them when we return from this break. You're watching Standpoint. We'll take a break when we return. We'll continue on our conversation on the fuel subsidy removal and the consequences and impact we're seeing across the country. Stay with us. Thanks for staying with us. You're watching Standpoint. We're having that conversation on the fuel subsidy removal and that announcement that was made by President Bola Tinubu at his inauguration, where he said oil subsidy is gone. And that we saw the result and the effect of that particular statement, where a lot of filling stations started pretending, as it were, not to have the product, just waiting for an opportunity for pump price increase, and we have now seen that pump price increase. I still have with me, joining us from Abuja studio, presidential candidate of Social Democratic Party in the last election, Adewole Adebayo. We also have a development policy analyst, Alexander Oji, who is joining us via Zoom. Thank you both for staying with us. I want to bring, just, for a few minutes, take reaction from Nigerians, because Nigerians have been reacting to this, and we'll cut some of this reaction on camera. Let's get this reaction from Nigerians to the fuel subsidy removal.
Look at it. 502 naira.
We are suffering today because we have refused to help ourselves. The announcement that was made yesterday was supposed to take effect, if at all, from July 1st. So we are just opportunists who have decided to take over whatever was said. And this is very sad. And that is why this country is what it is today.
It's bad. It's bad. It's people that want the government to be saying government not good, though. Government not good. They are the people. Well, they never buy for a new price. Though. It's the same old price. They never increase them. The one they buy down, they want to sell higher price.
Mr. President may have announced that subsidy is gone, but not for people who already have products to be selling for us less than 24 hours, 502. That is inhumanity to human.
I feel people take advantage of situation of things, and they want to benefit at the expense of others. Because I believe that removal of the fuel subsidy is the best thing to happen to Nigeria.
And all the petrol stations has begun to halt their petrol. If you look at what is going on in here now, we've been queuing for more than 2 hours, yet we have not been able to get fuel.
I subscribe to it. The reason is that those cabals, the people who are highly placed, they use that as a means of siphoning the economy.
And there you have it, Nigerians reacting to the fuel subsidy removal and the impact we have seen, especially from the filling stations themselves, who, first of all, were hoarding it, and then the pump price increase. I want to bring in Mr. Adebayo, because if you listen to that particular reaction, one thing was clear. I'm not sure most of them were against the removal, if not, at least a few of them did support it. But there was just a general confusion as to why there is an increase in the pump price when this is supposed to take effect, from their own understanding, from June 30th. And they also believe that the product now being sold for a higher price is a subsidized product. You already had product. So why are you selling for a higher price? I want to get your reaction to that, Mr. Adebayo.
Well, we are now leaving the realm of policy to realm of behavioral science. But it's clear that in the market, in market economics, anywhere you see arbitrage, people are going to want to take advantage of the arbitrage, because that is probably some of the unintended consequences of that policy statement coming there. And you might say, okay, the marketers were greedy. I think it's greed that took them into the business of petrol in the first place. So that is capitalist greed. You want to maximize profit. But it turned out that there was a differential in the understanding. Those who are on the policy side thought that the subsidy regime will end on June 30. Those who are on the business side knew that it will end the next day, because as it turned out, NNPC is not waiting until June 30. So I don't want us to spend too much time, analyzing, doing the analytics of social behavior on an issue that is just is predictable, that if you are going to have price differential, the person who has a stock, if in cost accounting, has to think about, do I use historical costs, the cost at which I got this product to price, or do I use replacement cost, the cost at which I'm going to buy if I sell now? And that is the microeconomics for the person. So the regulators should have predicted that and mounted these places and warned them. We are going to make a policy change tomorrow, but announcement, but don't panic and don't sell beyond this, you will lose your license. Those are things they can do, but now everything has equalized because the new price has come. All the queues that you had, people themselves were trying to take advantage. Let me just show you the price mechanism behavior. Both the people who came to buy and the people who are selling, they have the same greed in their mind. Because many people who went to rush to buy, they didn't need petrol at that time. They were trying to take advantage of the price differential. And those who were selling were also trying to take advantage of price differential. So, but in terms of policy, what I want us to understand is that if you believe, as majority of Nigerians believe, by the way they voted, that subsidy has to go, the way President Bola Ahmed Tinubu has implemented it is the only way option for you. Because if you believe, I don't believe in that school of thought, but let me put myself in their shoes. If you believe that the subsidy itself is the problem, then their school of thought is now divided into two. Those who believe in gradualism, and they have been the one in power for the past several decades, they will say, okay, increase a bit, reduce the burden. And those who say it has to go once and for all, take the haircut, receive the shock at one time, and then exit that regime and go into the market, and then everybody will be okay. So that is the school of thought that he believes. So of all the three political parties, and Labour added to them, that's Labour, organized Labour, TVC, and Analyst, all of them believe in this subsidy must go. Because if you look at the Labour movement, they supported a party and a candidate that said, I will remove subsidy on day one. So there should be no ambiguity and there should be no confusion that, oh, maybe organized Labour is not against, he doesn't want subsidy to go. Organized Labour, TUC, NLC, all of them want subsidy to go. They supported candidates who said subsidy will go. What we may be quarreling about now is whether they want to squeeze the government into making some macroeconomic or some, let me just narrow it down to some fiscal inflationary decision, like increased salary and some other spending that don't have the ability to add fillip to the economy. So the government may want to sit down and say, no, I've already exited the regime of subsidy. The savings there for 2023 is already gone. So maybe what do I do next? Maybe I will try to look for other ways. And I will recommend to them, don't inflate the economy by nominally increasing cost of labor and all of that, because in the end, it would kill everybody. Secondly, you cannot kick the can down the road. So if you want to remove subsidy, if you believe in it, remove it once and for all. Don't dance around it. And in the course of my campaign, I consulted people who were in charge of the government before. I wanted to be president, so I spoke to people who had been president. And I asked them about these issues. Those who didn't remove subsidy, or those who couldn't remove subsidy, told me that it was one of the decisions that they regret. They think they should have removed it. So those who believe that subsidy should go, better just suck up the situation and then deal with how to manage the side effects of it, which is not difficult. However, the investment you need to make can now be in two ways. You can make the investment in terms of risk sector, or you can go and full what we call illusion of money. You can now raise minimum wage from 30,000 to 100,000. It's up to you. Mr.
Adewole, let me get to you shortly on solutions, because we know that Labour has said, look, they are going to embark on strike from Wednesday if the NNPC doesn't reverse to the original price. But let me bring in Mr. Orji. Two issues here. One of them is the issue of gradualism, which Mr. Adebayo has stated that some people believe that, look, this should be phased gradually and perhaps with consultations and with some palliatives put in place and not the immediate removal. I would like you to speak to that. But I would also like you to speak to my original question earlier. Whilst the immediate release of the price template by NNPC, what you make of that? I know that NNPC has said, that's the GCO has said, whilst there was provision made till June 30th in the budget, but there was no cash backing to that provision. But also speak to the price template released immediately and then the issue of phasing it out gradually.
Okay, let me start with the issue regarding the price template released. In a recent interview granted by the GCO of NNPC Limited, Mele Kayore, he did admit that those in circulation, the list, was actually from NNPC. But indeed, in his defense, he said, like every other businesses, they have their price templates. It was for the consumption and for the internal use of NNPC to set its price based on the shock of the markets. So it was not a determinant, for every operator or seller in the industry. And in reflection, before I left Lagos as at yesterday or day before yesterday, some people were selling much less than that particular price template. And some were selling about that price or even slightly higher. What you've seen is that it may act as a guideline for others to set their prices, in as much as they have the stocks, the actual stocks in the market now. But what will happen when they run off the current stocks they have and they now have to go bring in additional products? That's when the real prices may set in, because you have the depot price, you have all other prices that sets, including union and the rest of them. Then you have the landing cost at the fuel stations. Then, of course, the expected sales, and of course, some who want to make quick returns will want to sell much less. But again, it leaves much questions again for the GCO to answer, because if these prices are being released based on, in his own words, they have about 1 billion liters. To what degree is this billion liters in your capacity? Is it based on the fact that Nigerian has actually paid subsidy on this particular 1 billion liters as he has claimed? Or is it the products that have not undergone the subsidy reclaims, as it would always seem to appear? That would have been ideal for us to get that question from him before one can actually respond appropriately. But again, I want to respond also to the question as regarding implementing this gradually. The truth be told, it has come to go, it has come to stay, it has come to stay. The earlier we embrace it, the better for us all as a Nigerian. Because we must look at the factuality of leaving this whole entity, so-called subsidy, that has over the years eaten so deep into our fiber. To date, no one is able to give an accurate figure of what has been paid in subsidies. No one has been able to give the accuracy in the determinants of the payments of this. In one of the circulating videos of a word said by the former emir of Kano, Lamido Sanusi, who actually said that the ideal thing would be to even vet the vessels that brought in these products, because it expected that the insurance companies would be, informed and fully with the details of these vessels. That one way to checkmate this is to visit the insurance companies, let them make submissions. Through that process, you can actually verify and vet if indeed these XYZ products were actually brought into the country. Because there's been so much claims, the fact that so much leaves the country into our neighboring borders, and yet nobody is able to, has been captured and, prosecuted. Again, we heard the GCO on a live interview admit that it is possible that in some cases, some people, after claiming the subsidy, will still take the same product out and still bring it back and reclaim another subsidy. What this now is telling us that it is actually being confirmed that these are criminal activities. And one thing, again, I'm happy, is that the president, in his recent pronouncements, said that he has given the security operatives to go after the oil tips. I know many may, in their words of hearing him and not listening to the president, think he's only referring to those breaking pipes in the Niger Delta and other regions. But indeed, a thief is a thief. Those who are stealing our money through the subsidy will also be included. And I'm happy now he's coming with a new dynamic regarding these whole processes. What we should now be clamoring for is that we hold him accountable to the very promises he made to Nigerians. Which is, first of all, we agree he's not going to be able to do all this alone. Never. What I'm happy is that there seems to be overwhelming support and show of solidarity and understanding by the people. For the short commentary you ran now about the people's response to this, the clamor is not the fact that the subsidy was removed, but the way and manner the people who are taking advantages of it are doing.
And let me speak on that issue, Mr. Auditor, Mr. Adebayo, because that's a worry for a lot of people going forward, especially now that we spoke with, TVC spoke with Mr. Melekiari, the GCE of NMPCL. And one of the things he said, and again, you know, that's the basics for any sector that has been deregulated. Of course, market forces is expected to determine the price. But we also cannot take away the human factor. And one worries about whether, because especially now that, you know, where one wonders where regulation lies. And, you know, you want to think about what to do about some individuals in that sector who want to take advantage of the fact that, look, we can determine the price, you know, who will now become the market forces themselves to determine the price. How do you handle those kind of situations where some people are going to fix exorbitant price, you know, in terms of, and they will start production, procurement, and logistics?
You see, let's start with, you either govern or you don't govern. As I told you before, the worst of the arguments with respect to subsidy, why you should remove it, is this argument that you can't determine the quantity, you can't control the waste. If you can't control the waste in a physical sector like petroleum, where if you're not refinery, the refinery or around the modular ones, unofficial ones, you are actually importing. And the ships have to come into Nigerian water. You can't enter Nigerian water without being piloted into Nigeria. If you cannot kill kill corruption and fraud in physical 33,000 liters of trucks crisscrossing our border, how are you going to kill corruption in arms procurement? How are you going to kill corruption in the area of payroll? Nigeria doesn't even know how many people are being paid in our armed forces. Maybe we can excuse civilians, but I don't know of any country that doesn't know the number of people serving them in uniform. That is ridiculous. So there are so many areas where you have corruption. You have corruption in road construction. How much is being paid to contractors to construct roads? So are you going to stop constructing roads because you can't control corruption there? Are you going to stop running the armed forces and stop buying platform for them because you can't control? Are you going to stop paying salaries because you can't control the corruption? Controlling corruption it's not an excuse to remove subsidy. The duty of government is to abolish corruption. It's in Chapter 2 of our Constitution. So I don't buy that argument at all. Then with respect to operations of the downstream sector, NNPC, they are experts in it. They cannot, the GMD, any GMD who tells you, I don't know the quantity we are consuming, immediately is telling you, fire me. How can you not know? They know. But whether you want to say it or not is a policy decision. But they know. The question we need to ask ourselves is that people assume that there's a government money sitting down somewhere which is available to pay for subsidy between now and June 30. No, many of them are unfunded mandates. The fact that something is provided for in the budget doesn't mean that the money, the cash, or the liquidity is there. So you will see that maybe later people will pay more attention to budgeting. That government has written something down in a budget doesn't mean the money is available. It's just like a housewife writing a list of items and taking to the husband and say, we want to buy this. The man might say, I haven't got my salary yet, or I don't want to have money for it, let's go and borrow. So writing a budget down in your house doesn't mean you have the money. So let's just understand that. So the money is not where. The money has been spoken for. The money is in deficit. But I don't want to bring Nigerians back because I don't want to cause confusion in the treatment of the issue. The policy has come. I wish it hadn't come. If I was president, I wouldn't do it. But it's been done. And it's been done by someone who is intelligent enough. Is a new liberal economic player. He understands how to run the economy along neoliberal principles. So the president has done it the way, if I was a neoliberal, the way I would have done it. But I'm not. Now, there are other things you now need to do. Don't go and cause crisis for yourself and assuming that there is a labor union or labor group representing your interests. They are not. The labor is part of the government, the part of the elite in the government. The only way you can take care of the poor now is to find a way to get the people to not forget about mercenaries. Go straight to your elected officials and hold them accountable for investment in the social sector. Like, if you have increased the price of petrol, then you need to give us buses in the cities, especially if you can afford green buses that use solar and they use gas. That way, a worker who wants to go to work can actually have alternative to the use of the car. Then you need to make more investments in other things that people spend their money on. You have to make sure that the cost of food doesn't go up, and there are ways to do that if you want to do that. You want to make sure that people also have savings, another thing they spend their money on. For example, if you make the public schools better, then poor people will not have to cough money to put their children in private schools. Then you need to do something about the value of the money. If you don't do something about the value of the money, you are just, even with the subsidy removed, the price will still keep increasing. And don't be deceived that if there's a Dangote refinery or there's Adebayo refinery, and that because we are producing, the refinery is located in Nigeria, that the product is not priced in dollar. It is priced in dollar because everything that the refinery...
left, Mr. Adebayo, my apologies. I just want to give the last few minutes to Mr. Oji to respond to some of the things you've said, because you've talked about the issue around almost as though apart from the foreign exchange, it's almost as though for transportation, those are the palliatives and incentives you're asking government to put in place, almost like subsidizing the cost of living, like you mentioned earlier. And I want to Mr. Oji to respond to that, some of the incentives that should be put in place, and if he agrees with those incentives. And then, also just as to how we would meet our production capacity and production and consumption capacity in the country as well, with our refineries being down.
All right. Thank you again. Again, I agree with Mr. Adebayo in some of his renderings regards the palliatives. But we ask ourselves, in the past, did this level of palliatives of saying you give certain individuals to provide buses, did it work? And has it been sustainable? My own clamor has always been, if you want to do things, look for something that is sustainable. How does it transition to being something that can self-fund itself and continue? Because the idea of some people who are closer to the corridor of power to get these allocations, get some luxury buses and some luxury cars for themselves, after a while, the whole thing fades. We don't get it. Let me give you a typical example of what can work. During the CPN just concluded policy that we all know hurt the entire economy, Lagos State government was able to initiate about a 50% waiver on all its BRT and its taxes, new taxes, called the Lagos Ride. Many people were able to move easily, at least I would say, and speak of many, like myself. It was easy to commute because you could actually see the direct reduction of these prices and you're benefiting it on day-to-day basis. And each of the drivers were also not affected in expecting the funds to come from Lagos State because there was a trade-off discussions. So it did not hurt the drivers. It did not hurt we, the residents of Lagos, It did not also hurt the economy of Lagos because there was an agreed terms of rendering returns and also for each particular movement and logistics. That is what can work at the center. It is possible to provide this kind of measures and it will instantly cushion the effects on all Nigerians. Let's also look at what can the government do in buying the foods from the farmers and subsidizing it to Nigerians so that the average poor man on the street can even if it's 1 meal a day. I tell you the secret of governing Nigeria. If an average man on the street can eat, even if it's 2 square meals of the day, he's not bothered about what billions you have in the account or who indeed is damaging the economy. It is now left for the government at the top to be able to checkmate by ensuring that we actually have the very best laws in Nigeria. The biggest challenge we've had is implementing. There is always a waiver, there's always a face before the law of saying, this is my brother-in-law, this is my brother, and as such, I cannot punish him. No, let the law take its course.
You've spoken to issues around food subsidy and transportation as well. And it means that, look, if this is also going to work, the state governors have to play a very active role in ensuring
pivotal role in this. I agree.
Their own citizens and residents also
the labor.
Absolutely. But, you know, thank you both. I wish that we could continue this conversation. The president has said that, has talked about minimum wage. We'll see how that conversation goes. We wish we could have had the General Secretary of the Trade Union Congress. He did say he was going to join us, Nuhu Toro, but we couldn't have him. Hopefully, we'll have him in our subsequent conversations and get the side of Labour. Thank you both for talking to us. The presidential candidate of Social Democratic Party in the last general election, Adewole Adebayo, he joined us from our Abuja studio. We also had a development policy analyst,
and God bless Nigeria.
Thank you so much. You joined us via Zoom. Thank you for talking to us. Let's remind
Thank
Nigerians
you so much.
that you can.
Let's keep the dream and hope alive.
Let's remind Nigerians that you can watch again at 11 p.m. tonight and at 5 a.m. on Sunday morning. I am Precious Amayo. It has been Standpoint. Thanks for watching.